You alright? You alright, baby?
Phil walks the tree line when the sun goes down. Boots in the gravel on the edge of town. Backpack rattles with a lantern and a map. Looking for the thing
behind it. And then 2 3-foot tall, 3.5-foot tall guardians with glowing red eyes were there.
Boys been chasing shadows in the midnight grass. But Phil just smiles at the cold night air. 'Cause something out there knows he's there. In the rustle of leaves.
Yeah, I've experienced everything from angels to demons to ghosts to all kinds of other things I can't explain. I had my first Bigfoot encounter back around 2012 or something like that.
Chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight, from forgotten forests to the deserts deep, where the old bones hide and the spirits creep. With a camera and courage and a trail to see, you'll follow any legend through eternity. Yeah, the world's full of whispers most folks never see, but they all know.
I think disclosure is inevitable for one simple fact. This is true. UFOs are real. You can ignore the truth, you can distort it, you can hide it, you can lie about it, but you will never destroy it.
Lights dancing in a cold black sky. Track band branches where the tall grass sways. Heard something breathing in the forest.
A guy standing next to my bedroom door, only at night, and he stood there, and I was 3-4 years old, and my mom thought I was crazy.
And when the fire burns low and the coyotes sing, you can bet he's hunting something strange again. Through the static and dark, through the myth and the lore.
Obviously, I believe that these things exist after the stuff I've seen. So you can't say to someone who's seen stuff, these things aren't real. Obviously, you know. But yeah, people keep telling me they're not real, but I know they are.
free.
Oh, hello. Yeah, do you know my lighting is going a bit funny, for some reason. Can't quite nail it with the lighting. It either looks like I'm kind of like in a set from Nosferatu, or I'm totally washed out. It's a bit weird. Anyway, hello. Hope you're all keeping okay. Lovely to join. Lovely to join. What am I on about? Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming on and watching this. Great guest we've got on. Inspector Roy Teague. Yeah, that's it. So really, really lucky, I think we're lucky stars to have him on, really do. And his book as well. A bit echoey there as well. Right. Let me know in the comments if I look okay. Right, no funny comments, no funny ones. I get it. All right. It's just like lighting. If the lighting's okay, and also if you can hear me all right, because I'm not 100% this time around. But anyway, book really good. Yeah, very, very good. I actually did read this. Yeah. Because I mean nowadays I know a lot of people have the audio books because time is, short. Not a lot of people have a lot of time to sit down and read, and that's a bit of an issue, isn't it, in itself? Because it's like a very relaxing way to like calm down and, decrease the blood pressure and, get yourself chilled out. But just time. So a lot of people do audio books. But this, honestly, I read because once you start reading it, you can't help but do it because it's the way it's done, and the way it's done is in a sort of a police manner. There's no flaff, there's no bulking, which is lovely to see. A lot of times you find a lot of bulking in books, and it's like kind of like I often like with Stephen King. I don't know if you find this. Love Stephen King stuff, but he kind of like goes on for a massive long chapter on a character. I mean, really finite detail, and then next chapter is killed off, and you're like, what? Well, why did I need to know all about his life? But this, no flaff, straight to it, and it's basically after a short introduction, it's testimonies, and his testimonies are all kind of like listed out in chronological order. Really good, very good. I would honestly recommend. All right, and that's I'm not getting paid for that. Although I do accept payments. I do anything really, But no, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah. It's been a bit of a funny old week today. This week, today. What am I talking gibberish? Yeah, work-wise, been a bit weird, but other than that, I'm pleased it's the weekend and a long weekend. Thank goodness. So you can all have Monday off, right? If your boss says, just tell them it's me. I'll let you have the Monday off. Well, I'm going to bring Roy on, okay, because we've got a lot of stuff to cover, all about aliens, all about witnesses, and they're all official witnesses, obviously, police officers. So really interesting. Okay, let's get Roy on. 3, 2, 1. Right. Hello, Roy.
Hello, Phil. I hope you can hear me, and it's awesome to be on your show, mate.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate, I do appreciate that. I'll take that. I'll take it wherever I can get it, to be honest, Roy. You know what I mean? It's like at my age, it's like kind of you just got to take it, grab it with both hands and hold on tight. I do look a dark still, don't I? I don't get it, honestly. There you go. Right, okay, that's a bit better, isn't it? Yeah, honestly, I look like I'm in a vampire movie now. Weird.
I think
Okay,
you
anyway.
look dark, and I probably look a bit light. So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but we'll sort it. We'll sort it. It's okay. People's eyes will get accustomed, and that's fine. They can wear sunglasses for you, and they'll probably need to get a bit closer to a TV for my one. Although there's prettier things to look at really than me. Let's face it. This show's all about you, Roy. All about you. How did you? When did you decide to write this book, Roy? When did this happen?
I've always been into the subject, UAPs, the paranormal, from a really young age. Phil, I don't know why. I just have been. Always wondered if something else was out there or something beyond the veil in the paranormal world. But it wasn't until 2016, coming home from work on a late shift, and I came across a documentary called UFOs and Nukes, where UFOs had been seen above American missile bases and had made the missiles inoperable. And that really got me thinking, well, why would all these servicemen make that up? I don't think they would. And I started to do some research, and I thought, well, who makes great witnesses to UAP events and paranormal events? And I thought, well, surely by virtue of the training, the police. And I knew I'd get access to those officers. So I kind of decided in 2016 that I was going to do something. And it was always in the back of my mind, but it wasn't until 2020 I started to collate the sightings and appeal for witnesses via the media. The BBC helped me out, the Police Federation, the National Police Air Service, lots of different sort of social media platforms. And after about 4 or 5 years, I'd interviewed about 250 police officers, got their accounts from them, put them down on paper, got them verified, and then obviously produced the book. It was released on July 2nd, and I put the best 75 sightings in the book, the most intriguing and compelling ones, and it's done pretty well. So that's how I got into it. I've always been interested in it, and it was a bit of a calling and something I just really wanted to do, Phil.
Yeah, no, thank goodness you did, because as I say, it's a bit of a closed shop, sort of like official avenues are notoriously closed shop when it comes to keeping things close to their chest, like UFOs, and also, things like cryptids and stuff like that. It's they've often been seen. I had a strange message once. It was a long time ago from there was a train driver, funny enough, who'd seen a Dogman. He didn't want to come on the show. He was still a train driver, but he said it ran along the side of the train as well. He also said he saw lights in the sky. Your witnesses often talk about lights and orbs as well, either as a preface to an actual UFO sighting, or afterwards. Is that something that you found quite common?
Sometimes, I mean, the sightings range from triangles to spheres to cigar-shaped UFOs to your classic saucer-shaped ones, orbs, as you say, balls of light, you name it. I've kind of had it reported to me by police officers. Yes, on some occasions there's been some pre-sightings of orbs, and then a bigger craft has been seen afterwards, or orbs have been seen after the craft has disappeared. Maybe they're linked, maybe they're not. I suspect that they are. But you're right what you said in regards to people not coming forward, because I think that they're scared of the ridicule and the stigma, and especially so in the police. And what I can absolutely state is, if it wasn't for the fact I was in the police and still serving, I don't think perhaps any of the witnesses would have come forward and spoke to me. So it's nice to be a conduit, for fellow law enforcement officers to get their accounts out there, mate.
Yeah. Does it I mean, that very what you just mentioned about you're still in the service, and do you find that it's a conflict, an inner conflict with you? Because obviously, when you join the police force, you're to serve, protect, and keep the peace, obviously. But also, honesty plays a big part in that. And do you find that there's a part of you which is always in conflict because of your job and because of certain information that you might have been privy to, you may have been privy to, that you really can't talk about because of your job? Do you find that inside you is a conflict?
Yeah, I'll be honest, on occasions, yeah. One of the biggest conflicts within me before I came out the UFO closet, so to speak, Phil, was how are the officers I work alongside, how are they going to regard me? Are they, are they going to still have the same sort of respect for me? How am I going to be regarded by, senior officers? Is it going to affect my, my professional credibility? And sadly, I think since the release of the book, because you've got serving police officers talking about the paranormal, UAP events, cryptid events, folklore events, and saying that some of these things, these things are happening, whether you want to believe it or not. And I think it's affected my professional credibility within the police service. And I think it's a real shame. In answer to are there some things I can't talk about, I have had a couple of cases where, because of the location of where they've occurred, certainly whilst I'm serving, it would be to my severe detriment to talk about them. But I won't always be in the police. So at some stage, I'm going to come out and I'm going to speak about these things. A little more about some of the grief I've had within the service about the book. But I can tell you, it has affected my service, and not all in a positive way. There have been some positive outlets because I've met some, witnesses and new officers and made some, great new friendships. I've met people like yourself coming onto podcasts, which I know is not really popular in the service, but I've always been told since day one of joining the police, Phil, that we're seekers of the truth. And that truth extends to not only criminal offences and dealing with crime and looking after people. We're seekers of the truth in everything. And if that means talking about subjects that are uncomfortable, like UAPs and cryptids and folklore, then I don't think we should be afraid to do that. And that's my intention, is to move forward and keep talking about it and shining a light on it. And I wish more police officers would do, but they don't. It's a shame, really.
It is, yes. I know they're stifled. They're stifled back. They're held back. It really is quite a shame that happens. I get it. I understand why. There's things which are just impossible to talk about. I worked on Lakenheath US Air Force Base for a while, and Mildenhall, United States Air Force Base, which are not quite close to one another. And there's things on there which I couldn't really talk about. It's one of those things. So I fully understand. I fully understand why you can't. You've got a YouTube channel as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. It's only about a month old. There's only one video on there, and it's a radio interview. But my plans moving forward, Phil, are to interview some of the police officers and other members of other emergency services, like the NHS, the fire service, the military, and interview them on camera and put those interviews on YouTube. And obviously the channel's Policing the Unexplained, as you can see there. And what I would like to say is, the more people I can get to jump on there and subscribe, the more popular it's going to be, the more it's going to push me along, the more interviews I'll get done. So, if listeners out there could jump on there and to Policing the Unexplained on YouTube and, like the video and subscribe, that would be absolutely incredible. And I really thank you for mentioning that at such an early stage of the interview, Phil.
Oh no, I'm going to mention it again at the end. I'm going to go through all the bits and bobs that you got, because people, if you're watching this, please, I can't stress enough that Roy is very important, because it's very rare that we get somebody, especially within the police service, coming out like this and freely talking about a genre which we're all very interested in. Across the board. and this country in particular, America is a little more forthcoming, but in the UK, we're really held back. So when we have people like Roy bringing out a YouTube channel where he's going to be interviewing fellow either retirees or but police officers, retirees or in the force already, look, show the love. Just go over, click subscribe. It costs nothing, and check it out. Okay, I'm sure he's going to be updating very soon. Hopefully, I'll do a collaboration link with him. So this video also will be on that channel, and vice versa. So we'll get that done. We've also got. Just want to show people where they can get the book from as well. Here we go. Right, so we've got Amazon, Close Encounters of the Police Kind, $9.75 paperback. I would say that's pretty damn good, really, for the information that you're getting in there. So yeah, check that out on Amazon. Well worth it. Right, I've got a few questions. Now, during the whole of this interview, I'm going to be putting up QR codes. Okay, so if you're watching on TV or PC, and it's say dropped as a recording, you can use your phone. It'll take you straight to the website. So we've got the YouTube for Roy Teague. Okay, so that's the QR for his YouTube. I'm going to be dropping these all the way through, okay, in the corner, and also his email address, very important. If anyone has any, especially if you're, and not just police officers, I don't think, Roy, it's also officials, especially. Now that might be military as well, because Roy was in the military as well, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a whole other lifetime ago. I did 6 years and got out, and obviously I've been in the police now for nearly 27. So it's a good chunk of service. But what I will say is that I'll respond to anyone. They don't have to be in the police or the military, because the sightings of anyone, no matter what their occupation is equally as important to them as a police officer is to them. So, you know, I will guarantee a reply to anybody who emails me. Which is contact@policingtheunexplained.com.
Yeah, no, please do. And I'll be putting the QR code up. All the links will be in the description anyway. They're already on there, so check those out. I just want to mention this is from your book at the beginning. I began my life in public service with several years in the Army and Reserve Forces, including operational tours of Northern Ireland and Bosnia, before becoming a police officer in 1999. So I just want to thank you, and I'm sure everybody at home would like to thank you for your service, both as a police officer and in the military. Thank you very much for protecting us.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.
You know, right, I'm gonna hit you with some questions. Are you okay with that?
I'm ready, Phil.
Okay then. Right, I've been digging around and okay, here we go. Right. You frequently defend your investigation of abductions by quoting specific criminal offences under UK law. Kidnapping, the unlawful carrying away of a person, false imprisonment, unlawful restraint of freedom, and assault under Section 47 of the Offences Against the Person Act, actual bodily harm. You argue that because these statutory offences fit the physical descriptions of abductions, they are legitimately police matters. Do you agree with that?
On some occasions, yes, not all. It depends. If you need to look at the person reporting, because we've got to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes people, you know, it might be a mental health issue. It might be somebody who's had a drink, or somebody who's, you know, on some sort of medication, a culmination of all three. But it could be somebody who's absolutely genuine. So it depends on who the person is. You need to conduct some background checks on them to see, you know, of an indicator if any of those things are in play. But for me, it's funny, but if someone says they've been abducted, we investigate it. But if somebody says I've been abducted and there's a UAP connotation, it's everything's paused, frozen, and it's moved aside, which is a shame. And I think we should look we should look into it, because I think the evidence that UAP exists is overwhelming, and we would be naive to think that if that is the case, which I believe it is, that people aren't being abducted or taken. So it should be looked into. Whether it's a police matter, which I think it is because they are criminal offences, is one thing. But also, I think that it's a military problem as well, because if something's breaching your airspace every night and there's not a thing that you can do about it, that's because of a national security issue. And I think that's also, as well as a policing, it's a military issue as well. But I do stand by it, Phil, that we should look at it, but we don't. And at the end of the day, I suppose, even if we did look at it, we're quite big on and driven on detecting crimes in the police. And I would imagine the detection rate for bringing someone to justice for abducting somebody from here and taking them to wherever they are taken, I think the detection rate would be zero, because how do you prosecute or capture a civilization or civilizations that are infinitely more technologically advanced than you are and smarter than you? It's a very tough thing to deal with, but we should look at it and be honest and delve into it. So I do stick by that, Phil. And I know that loads of police officers and loads of cops are going to see this, and at the public and all the rest of it, they're going to say, "Well, you've got a police officer and he's talking like that. And he's got 27 years in as an inspector, and tomorrow, which like I was today, I'll be back on 9/9 response, going to burglaries, robberies. I'll be dealing with all sorts of stuff." And people can say, "Well, how have you let that guy out on the streets? He's nuts." I'm not nuts. I know these things are real, Phil. I've got eyes. I can read and I can do my own research. And it's just a shame it's a taboo subject. But yeah, I do stick by my comments, mate.
Okay. Thank you. Right. All right. In that case, then, it's kind of like hypothetical, but if you, as a serving inspector, compiled a complete case file on an abduction, including victim statements, medical records, and physical evidence, how would you realistically represent this to the Crown Prosecution Service, since the CPS requires a realistic prospect of conviction against an identifiable, prosecutable suspect? Does framing these encounters as domestic crimes create an investigation dead end, or is your goal purely to establish a legal record? What would it be?
I mean, for me, I don't think we're going to ever start compiling cases of alien abduction and presenting them to the CPS. We may, if the government were to admit that there was non-human intelligence visiting the planet. But I don't think they're ever going to admit that. If they did, perhaps we could then start putting cases before the CPS. But for me, at this stage, it's listening to the witnesses, it's collating their accounts, and it's getting those accounts out there. That, for me, at this stage, has got to be enough, because I can't put these things before the CPS, because I'm going to be laughed out of court. I'd be laughed out of the police. And I imagine they'd post me off to the darkest corner of Alaska for the remaining part of my career. So it's collating them and putting the stories out there so people know that these things are not just being seen by the man in the street, the general public. These extraordinary craft are being seen in the skies above the United Kingdom and the rest of the world by sworn police officers, guardians of law and order, sworn servants of the Crown. And I guess it's a bit of solidarity where the police are saying, you're not alone in your beliefs. We know it's happening too. Unfortunately, it's just really me at this stage. Although I can tell you, Phil, from speaking to hundreds of officers, that they all think the same thing. They just don't want to stick their necks out because of how this will affect their careers. I mean, can you imagine, like, for example, I might go to court next week and give evidence in a case, and I'm going to have the defence solicitor saying, "Oh, right, aren't you that inspector that believes that, there's alien abductions going on and X, Y, Z, and you're taking stories about, UAPs and non-human intelligence and all the rest of it?" And I'm going to have to say, yeah. And how does that make me look at court? But at the same time, Phil, if you believe in something, like really believe it, I don't think you should be afraid to speak about it and say. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I'm not going to be putting any case files before the CPS. So at this stage, it's collating them, investigating them, to the best of my ability, with flight radar apps, looking at sort of celestial sites, where was Jupiter, Mars, and Venus at the time, a sighting was reported, find out if it was drones or lasers. I have to delve into that and try and prove, which is very difficult, that what a witness saw, whether it's police or whoever, that it was a non sort of human tick. It's difficult.
A lot of the people that you've spoken to, do they regret not being able to have a channel to report to? Do they regret that?
Yeah, there is no official way for police officers to report this anymore. There used to be, but there isn't anymore. There used to be an occurrence book, daily occurrence book. It'd be reported in there. Then it'd be reported to the RAF. We don't do that anymore. And I think people, in 2026, it's just not spoken about. This isn't the United States. We've got it's a very taboo subject. In the States, people can talk about it more openly because of the recent Pentagon videos and, the releases from the Department of Defense. President Trump is pushing for disclosure more, so they talk about it more. But in the UK, we just do not talk about it at all, and it's a real shame.
No, it is. It really is. It's yeah, and with the United States, with the Pentagon and everything that's coming out, I somehow do believe that it's kind of a little bit orchestrated. It's starting to feel orchestrated. It's not it's kind of it just feels at the moment, to me anyway, I might be I probably am completely wrong, but it honestly just does feel that we get a release of information. Basically, we get a release of a lot of military video with the FLIR and military drones, I think they're the Reaper drones, and we don't get a lot of corroborative information to follow it up with. We get the visuals, but we don't get any location. We really don't know, no specific location. We don't get any altitude, velocity. We don't know, most importantly, we don't have, which the military will have, what was the reaction of, say, a military navy ship. What was its reaction? Did it fire upon that UAP? Did it interact in any way? All we see is just the footage, and that's it. And like, oh, so there you go. There's a footage. Shut up now. You got it.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's predominantly aerial craft. I mean, I think there's possibly two reasons why they release stuff when they do. There's usually a scandal amidst at the time in the United States. So suddenly, to take your eye off the ball, they'll suddenly have a fresh release of footage. So you're looking over here instead of perhaps over here. Maybe that's orchestrated sometimes. And the other thing I often think is, with the technology getting better, Phil, telescopes, mobile phones, all the rest of it, people can look up more and better with, like I say, better telescopes, observatories. Could it not be the case that they won't be able to hide this for an indefinite period of time, and for that reason they're slowly drip feeding us the truth to get us used to some sort of disclosure, even if it's not by the government hand? It might be something might happen where it can't be denied anymore. So if they deny it, and then suddenly it's obvious, it's almost like a big punch in the face. Whereas if they drip feed it, we're having a couple of jabs on the chin, a slap around the cheek, and this might be happening. So when it comes along, it's not as big as a shock as it might be if they'd never said anything. I mean, I'm just surmising, and
No, it makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I think that I think that avenue of thought is, you're correct. I think you're correct, and I think I think it may go a little bit deeper. I think in the form of films like Day of Disclosure. And did you see Day of Disclosure? Did you see that Spielberg film?
I have watched Day of Disclosure. Yeah. I
All
have,
right.
yeah.
Okay. Not giving it away to anyone that hasn't watched it, but what was your overall take on it, just out of interest?
I enjoyed it, but it was a bit predictable and a bit of a Disney ending to it, in my opinion. But I did enjoy it. You know,
Yeah, that's exactly the same as me. I sat there with my toffee popcorn, and I had a 7 Up, and I nearly choked on a couple of scenes, because they were kind of like very predictable. Um, and I just kind of I was so disappointed because I really was quite disappointed. It's a rollicking good yomp. Don't be put off. It is like Roy said, a rollicking good yomp. I mean, it's just action non-stop. Uh, but it's almost every UFO, UAP trope you could possibly want to shove into a movie, shoved in. Um, the only thing I did find really interesting was that the that device they had, you know, that device, that like kind of stone thing,
yeah,
that
that's
was
right. Yeah,
interesting, wasn't it? That
it
was
was.
really
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
I mean, for all of the imperfections of it, I kind of forgave them on the fact that Emily Blunt was in it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that was yeah, no, that's good. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but moving along, in the book, it's got about the 1978 Boyne case concerning Officer F. Um, the officer discovered a cylindrical metallic object behind his right eye via an MRI. Can you just give us a bit of a background on that story for people at home?
Yeah, so the reason the officer's called Officer F is because he's elected to remain anonymous. So if someone's anonymous, I give them a pseudonym. So there's an Officer A, B, C, D, etc. Up until Officer K in the book. Uh, and if someone wants to go anonymous, I've got to respect that right. So Officer K served 30 years in Police Scotland. Initially, he was a part of Grampian Police, and he was based at Arboyne Police Station, which is up in Scotland near the Highlands. He was with a colleague. It was about 2 in the morning on the driveway of the police station, and a call comes over the car police radio saying there's several calls about something being seen in the sky heading from the direction of Aberdeen in the east towards where you are, Officer F in Arboyne. Can you see if you can see anything in the sky? And he gets out the car with his colleague, and he states he can't see anything, but what he does see coming towards him is what he describes as a rolling power cut. So the street lights are going out one by one, approaching him. And what lights are on in the houses at that time in the morning, they're going out as well. And eventually, when the lamppost goes off nearest to his car, the police car, cuts dead. At which point they both look up and see a matte black triangle flying over the head in complete silence. And it flies off west towards a town called Balatar. And it's lost to the blackness of the sky, but they know where the object is because the streetlights are continuing to go out in the west, so they know where the object is from where the power cut continues. And eventually, as whatever it is has flown off, the UAP, the triangular UAP, the lights start coming back on in the east until the car comes back on again. And he gets back in the car, grabs the mic, and he said it's only been 30, 40 seconds before he's had the transmission to look out for this thing in the sky. And he gets back on the mic and he says, wow, whatever that was has just passed over my head. And the operator says, well, where the hell have you been? We've been trying to get hold of you for 30 minutes now. So he states he doesn't remember being taken or abducted. So, perhaps time moves slower or faster in the vicinity of whatever these things are. But since then, and this was in 89, he's had loads of headaches to the extent where last year he went and had an MRI scan, as you quite rightly said. And that resulted in him being told by the consultant behind his right eye there appears to be some sort of metal, cylindrical, shaped oblong object. And he's always believed, he's got a scar on the right hand side of his face near his eye. And when he was told about this thing behind his eye, thought, oh no, the doctor must be wrong. He remembers having a coal fight as a kid. His sister threw a lump of coal at him and it hit him in the face. And he always assumed the scar was caused from that coal fight. And he said to his sister, you're going to believe this, that scar on my eye from when you threw the lump of coal at me, there might be something behind it. And his sister said, well, what are you talking about? Coal fire? I don't remember a coal fire. And he said, well, you know, you threw a coal, a lump of coal at me as a kid. And we've spoken about it loads of times over the years. It's been a bit of a family joke. And she said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember the incident. And I don't remember ever talking about it with you. So what the officer believes is that those memories may have been implanted in him. So the memory of the coal fight implanted in him, and then the subsequent memories of the talks with his sister have also been implanted in him. So based on what he's seen, the item behind his eye, and the fact that when you think about things, Phil, those memories can unlock other memories. And he remembers as a kid up until only last year as well, waking up in a bit of a daze, not being able to move, and having 5 or 6 small people, as he has said, around his bed, but he can't turn his head to look at them. He doesn't know what they are. So the aggregation of marginal gains, so they say, is when you add little things together, it can amount to like a big thing or an obvious answer. So with the, you know, the UFO, the triangular UFO going over his head, the missing time element when that occurred, the object behind his eye, the false memories, then the memories of these things being around his head. He believes, and I might be, you know, inclined to believe if the you know, all these incidents are as told by Officer F, I think it's a good classic, you know, potential to be a good abduction case, and it's probably one of the only ones for a police officer on duty I've heard about, apart from Alan Godfrey in 1980 in the Todd Morden incident. So it's a really intriguing account, but I can understand, because of what he's saying, why he's elected to go anonymous.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. But the thing that gets me is police officers generally, and I mean, you may back me up on this, or if not, then tell me. But I think the frequently advocate Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one when investigating anything. You know, it's usually the, you know, kind of the most simplest thing. You know, it was the brother that did it, the sister that did it, it was the, you know, whoever, you know, it was the, you know, it's usually the simplest explanation. Yet when faced with a sibling dispute over a childhood memory, you bypass, or at least he did, bypass simple psychological explanations, e.g. the sister simply forgetting a minor incident or the officer misremembering, in favor of a highly complex hypothesis of non-memory, non-human memory implantation, which is quite a big thing to, you know, kind of, I get it that he's got that thing behind his, you know, on the MRI. Did he ask the consultant what this thing was?
Yeah, and he said he can't. It's in such a position they don't want to risk damaging the eye by taking this out because it's behind the eye. But, and you know, Phil, you know, you ask some really good questions, but you know, that's your job as an interviewer. You've got to ask the awkward questions and ask away. And so you make a really good point about the Occam's razor, and the simplest solution tends to be the most correct one. So, for example, if somebody reports a UFO to me near an airport, it probably was a plane. And if it's, you know, someone's reporting a UFO and it's doing a meteorite storm, it's probably a meteorite. But there are some occasions where, even though you would normally go Occam's razor, if someone says, well, yeah, it was near an airport, Roy, but I'm telling you, it was 20 feet away from me, and it was a triangle. It was nothing to do with an airplane. Or during the meteorite shower, I can confirm it wasn't a meteorite because it was like 50 meters from me, and it was a, you know, a tube-shaped object that was flying at impossible angles. Then Occam's razor then wouldn't apply. I think when Officer F's case, it's the simple fact of, as I said, the aggregation of marginal gains. There's so many things, little things together, that then become a bigger thing. But your point's well made, and of course, maybe, you know, I don't doubt that, you know, Officer F did see what he saw in Arborn in '89, but perhaps you are right, and you must concede that there is a possibility he's misremembering because he was, you know, young when this occurred, and his sister's just forgotten. So of course I can't say no, that isn't the case. All I can do is what I do with all the cases is I take the account down from the officer. I ask them a million questions to try and rule out as many things as I can, and then I write them up. And then, as you know, you've done in this case, you might have other questions to ask, but I just present it, and then it's for the person that reads the accounts to then decide for themselves. Do they think that was just a series of coincidence, or do they think it was a genuine UAP incident? So you
Brilliant.
can never say never, and the questions are they're well
Yeah.
asked and well made, mate. I get your point.
No, I appreciate that, and your answers fantastic. The reason I asked that was because it is in my book, it is in my case, in my opinion, quite true. Okay, because I had to mention about Occam's razor because a police officer recounting this story would and should first of all apply that advocacy of Occam's razor first of all. So if being that he didn't, being that he said no, hang on, I can remember, that something else was happening at the time, then it makes it more genuine in my book. But I had to mention it because it is the way that investigation should work. You always go for this simplest explanation first, and then work your way back. You don't overthink things. You kind of go laterally.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very sort of strict, I call it methodology of investigation, mate. So, the ABC principles: accept nothing, believe no one, check everything. I've got a gold, silver, and bronze standard of talking to someone. So gold is in person in the same room. Silver, like we are now over the internet, so we can still see each other. So gold and silver are quite good because I can see your face, you can see mine. And NVCs, non-verbal communication, is very important. Do I detect an element of dishonesty when I'm talking to a witness when I can see them? Can they not look me in the eye? The shuffling the feet, all that stuff. And then bronze standard is like a simple phone call, which I try to avoid. But what I do, Phil, is I try to disprove that it's a UAP sighting, because I have a rule out list of about 50, 60 things on there: drones, flares, meteorites, planes, planets, swamp gas, light bouncing off birds, off pools, back up in the sky, you name it. And I've got to discount all of those 50 or 60 things before I can even say there might be something in it. And then if I can discount that, then I go to the second thing, which is military craft, secret military craft being tested by our government or the Americans or whomever. And you think, well, how can you rule out whether it's secret military craft or UAP? And the only way you can kind of do that is from the crazy right angle turns, or what I call bullet exit, if the craft is hovering still and then goes from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in a second. Now we're fast and we're intelligent and we can build craft that go at thousands of miles an hour. But what we can't do is have it go from thousands of miles an hour after like 1 second bullet exit. There's got to be reaction from our craft, afterburners and all the rest of it. And as I say, we're clever. We can build craft that go at thousands of miles an hour. There's a nuclear missile the Russians have built, mate, called the HGV, which travels at 22,000 miles an hour, Mach 27. So if I can rule out secret military craft being tested because of the right angle turns, the bullet exit, that's when I go to another theory, mate, which is equally as good as Occam's razor. And that was written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And what he said was this: when you eliminate the impossible, no matter what remains, no matter how improbable, it must be the truth. So if it's impossible that what was seen was on my rule out list, it wasn't drones, it wasn't planes and planets. If that's impossible, and it's impossible that it was secret military craft being tested, whatever remains, craft of non-human tech, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. But it takes a really long time to get there, Phil, and you've got to do a lot of investigating and all the rest of it. And of the 250 officers I spoke to, I reckon 7 or 8, if their accounts are as they have told me, I'm confident that they have seen craft of non-human tech. But that's kind of my mythology of investigation. But it does take a long time to reach that conclusion.
How fast does that missile go?
It goes at 22,000 miles an hour, give or take a mile an hour or two. So it's called the Russian HGV. It's a hypersonic glide vehicle. Unfortunately, as I say, it's a nuclear missile. But we've got some, and there's planes that can do, Mach 4 or 5 with a human in it. Drones can go faster because obviously we're not, confined then to G forces on a pilot. But You know,
The
it's
fastest, the
difficult.
fastest
You've got to
man-made.
rule these things out.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think it's the Voyager. Voyager 1 is traveling 38,000 miles per hour, 17 kilometers a second. Voyager 1.
Yeah, so I'm relating to objects that are in our skies, whereas you're right.
Oh
That's outer
yeah,
space and all the rest of
yeah.
it. So
But that's incredible. I wondered that. You know, I was looking at the Voyager. Amazing how that thing's still going, still transmitting. Incredible. Right. Getting back to your methodology of investigation, and you're trained in a peace framework. Is that right?
yeah, that's when you interview sort of suspects in custody. Usually, they're in for criminal offences.
Okay. Um, how do you forensically distinguish between a genuine memory, a confabulation, and a supposedly implanted alien memory? If non-human intelligences can flawlessly implant false memories of entire conversations, how can you trust any part of an abductee's testimony, including their recollection of the UFO itself? How would you do that?
It's difficult, and I mean, I'll just reiterate at this early stage. I mean, you know, Inspector Roy Teague, I'm certainly not an expert. I mean, how do you become an expert in that type of thing? It's very difficult. I think when people are regressed, I think it can help, because if you remember something one way, but then you're regressed, I think that can open memories that have been suppressed. So you might then get the real memory of what really occurred, and not the memory that was implanted in you. I don't know if that makes any sense. And again, this is me just hypothesizing. So I'm certainly not an expert. I can just go on the testimonies and the accounts that officers have told me, and collate them and put them together. But that is very, very difficult. And I would imagine that there are people out there who are a lot more qualified than me, who could sit people down, I guess in a psychiatrist chair, or somebody who can regress them, who are trained a lot better than me. But it's very, very difficult, Phil, to distinguish what's real and what's not with a memory. It's a tough one.
Yeah. It was Whitley Strieber. He's definitely not an advocate of hypnosis or regression. He doesn't like the fact of it, because he says hypnosis in itself can alter one's memory when they go in. It can embroider on an existing memory when you
And it could probably add things to it and create things that didn't occur, and then that becomes your reality, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Because we all fill in gaps, don't we? We kind of we we kind of like can't help it. We love a story. We do love a story, and if it's something which we don't fully understand, we will create a story to explain it with. So it's kind of like funny thing that funny trait we have as humans. To determine if a craft is non-human, you use a rule out list of 50, 60 items. And that's planets, drones, lasers, and evaluate secret military technology. If those are impossible, you use Conan Doyle's maxim, which you spoke of, that whatever remains non-human tech must be the truth. You rule out military tech if the craft displays bullet exit, what they call like instantaneous acceleration, or extreme right angle turns. But military black projects are deliberately designed to appear physically impossible. Do you agree with that?
I would say that it's not off the table, certainly. I just don't believe that we've got that technology at that stage. However, if that comes out, do you know what? That we have, I would then say, do you know what? It's okay, Phil. It's okay to be wrong, isn't it? So I just don't
Yeah.
think we've got that technology at this stage to go from a standing start to thousands of miles an hour. I just don't think we've got that. If the United States, because always the United States, because they're always the world leaders in sort of this type of thing, if they come out with something, and then I go, well, crikey, how the hell do I rule out now, military craft? Once they've cracked that, I can never really rule it out, and it'd be very difficult to say that what we're seeing was non-human tech. But I just don't think we've got that technology yet. But
No.
you are right about You know, they're wanting to keep black book projects off the book, and they want to lull us into a sense of security that we're here on the technology scale, but really we're perhaps here. And I know that things that are, you know, things that are created now were probably on the drawing board 40 or 50 years ago. I do acknowledge that. I just personally don't feel we've got, at this point in time, craft that can go bang bang in a split second to thousands of miles an hour. I just don't think we have.
No, I agree with you. I don't think we have either. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I mean, from a obvious reason that it cannot be manned. It cannot be manned. It's impossible because we just
Because
turn to mush.
yeah, unless there's some sort of technology in there that creates, like, I don't know, an anti-gravity bubble where you're protected within it. Who knows? I have no idea. They're difficult questions to answer, because we never get told to the extent of which we've advanced by governments, do we?
No, no, it is very it is very difficult. This kind of like is a lot of this speculation. It's very annoying. I find it bloody annoying because we get witness testimony. We often see stuff ourselves, and we get this trunch of files thrown at us monthly or every 2 weeks, and we go through that with a fine tooth comb. But it's tentatively just out of reach. I kind of can't help thinking that there is a truth to this, and I kind of think that we won't ever know it. I don't think we're meant to know it. Why they're chucking us a carrot every time, I think is probably a form of pacification. It's like to pacify us for some
Perhaps, yeah. I don't
reason.
think they'll ever admit it for two reasons. One is fear, because as I said before, they've got to admit that there's something coming into our airspace that we can't do anything about, and potentially taking our citizens, and they'll never admit that. And the other one is religion, because we all believe that, a lot of people believe, 95% of the population of the planet believe that there's a God of some kind. And if we then admit that, non-human intelligence is coming here, well, then the question is, well, if God made us in his image and we're top of the food chain, who are these guys that are even more intelligent? But, I've got my own beliefs. So I would say to people, anyone that says that, God works in mysterious ways, why can't he, create man, and why can't he also create another intelligence? So, but I don't know. It's a tough thing to prove. And going back to Occam's razor and the rule out list, people say, I saw a craft and it was going at right angles at thousands of miles an hour. Then I'd be thinking about lasers as well, because lasers, you can shine those up in the sky, or torches, and they can do all sorts of things. It's such a tough thing it's such a tough thing to investigate and get to the stage where you say it's non-human tech. But I can only but rule out these things as best as I can, mate, in every individual case that's told me.
Yeah, no, I get it. But after talking to all these people, what spill the beans? What's your gut feeling? What do you think we're dealing with here? What's your gut feeling inside you?
My gut feeling is, I genuinely believe, and before I was like, it probably is, because there's three things, Phil. One, there's life elsewhere in the universe. So if you get a plant on Saturn or an amoeba on, Jupiter, well, extraterrestrial life is proven. However, that's different to intelligent extraterrestrial life. So I think most people can see that there's life elsewhere in the universe and intelligent life elsewhere, but because of the great distances of time and space, it's very difficult for some people to believe that life has come here to Earth. But I believe, based on all the officers I've spoken to, the research I've done, that I believe I went from sitting on the fence to now believing beyond all reasonable doubt, from the research I've done and the people I've spoken to, that not only is there intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, that it does visit and continues to visit Earth. And that's just based on my own research and the people I've spoken to. And what you've got to ask yourself is this: do you really believe, Phil, that all the the 250 plus officers I've spoken to, and the hundreds of thousands around the world that have had UAP experiences, do we really believe that they're all wrong or lying? And I don't think they are. And I think that deep down inside, the majority of probably the planet know there's something else out there. I think they just need a bit more evidence to believe that life is visiting the planet. But my gut feeling is that it's happening, Phil, and it continues to happen, and it's been happening for quite some time. If you look at old cave paintings in caves and all the rest of it, I think these have been here for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's indelibly ingrained into our culture, and it has been for thousands of years. I think and I think years and years and years, thousands of years ago, there was a distinct lack of written word for quite a long time. So yeah, they used to draw on cave paintings and stuff. I tend to believe that it's a bit more biblical. I think that what we're dealing with, I honestly do, is if you like, entities which haven't got our best welfare at stake. That's what I believe, because every time you see an abduction or hear about an abduction, it's a pretty bloody horrendous deal. They get you on a ship, they kind of like have no idea, there's no understanding of the human psyche, there's no understanding of the human fear factor. They cannot communicate unless they talk in a robotic fashion. They're quite childlike. It's just sort of all a bit, and I think perhaps I was talking to L.A. Mazzulli, and he kind of like struck a bit of a chord with me, and I thought, do you know what? I think he's got a point. Do you think it could be that they are like not demonic, but do you think they could be like evil spirits, evil entities?
I do believe that type of thing exists, and perhaps on some occasions the paranormal and the UAP are mixed up by witnesses, or that type of thing. So I do believe in, and it's quite funny. So I'm in here now. I've been in the police 27 years, and if I say, I believe in demons and all the rest of it, this guy's crazy, he's in the police, he believes in demons. But what I would say is that the people that laugh and say things, like this guy's nuts, when you ask them if they believe in God, they'll say yes, but they'll conveniently not believe in demons and spirits when those things are actually in the Bible. So they want to conveniently believe in certain aspects of the good book, but they don't want to believe in the bad aspects, and you can't have one without the other. So I think those things also exist, and perhaps on occasions they do get mixed up with UFOs or UAPs, as the trendy term is now, and vice versa. I think there's a lot of things in this this world we don't understand, especially with the paranormal and cryptids and folklore stuff, and whatever those things are, that they keep their heads down, because at the moment we're the dominant force on the planet, so they're hiding in huge forests and woodland and all the rest of it. But I do believe, and I've spoken to I spoke to an officer who was present when her dad was exercised, believe it or not, some like 35 years ago. And I've spoke to officers who've had some serious paranormal experiences with what they state are spirits, malevolent entities. So it's not just UAPs I speak about. The officers are speaking to me about all sorts of stuff. I've spoke to a guy who's we went to a road traffic collision, and he gave a bandage to a lady, and then he went to a car, opened the car door to help out an injured lady that was in the car as well, and the lady in the car was dead, wearing the same clothes with the same injuries, and he turned around and the woman on the pavement who he'd given the bandage to was gone. So he knew that the woman, it was like the woman didn't know she'd passed on. and I've spoken to officers about all sorts of stuff. So I do believe that there is something to be said about the spirit world, and and demons and all the rest of it. And I think sometimes we mess with things we shouldn't, like Ouija boards, when we don't know what we're doing, and you can invite things here that you shouldn't. And I don't think some people give the respect to that area of phenomena that they should. But maybe on occasions, Phil, yeah, we do get them mixed up, and it's not UAP. Maybe it is malevolent entities. I haven't. Who is to say? Each occasion judged on its own merits.
You don't have to answer. I just thought I'd like fling it out there just in case. How far up the tree when it comes to reporting could a sighting or a witness, how far up the tree could it go within the police force before it's squashed?
I think most of the time it would be squashed because the officers wouldn't have the courage to talk about it. But I do know, I'll give you an example. 1971, there was a PC called Les Leake, and he went on to become a chief inspector. And he was on duty, and a call came in. There was a UFO above a garage called Bunn's Garage in Walsall Road. And he went out the nick, Aldridge Police Station, saw it in the sky. Loads of people saw it. He jumped his police car with another officer. They kind of chased it down the road, try and get as close as they could to it. Took some pictures, 12 photographs, in fact. That was on a Minolta 35 camera, which back in the day was state of the art. This thing's then flown off into the sky. He then got a phone call the next morning from a superintendent who had ordered him to ring PC Leak and tell him, under the chief constable's orders, that he was to go with that camera to another police station and get them developed in a photo lab. That was done. And eventually, when the photographs came back, he was only given 4, and they were clearly of like a blob of whatever it was that he hadn't taken. It was basically the photos were swapped, or the worst ones given, and he could see a craft with some sort of lines underneath it, and those were never given back. He was ridiculed by his force, a couple of newspaper articles. He was then visited by a guy called J. Allen Hynek, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was the lead for Operation Project Blue Book. The Americans say project, we say operations. A Project Blue Book, and that was supposed to be cancelled in '69. And that was the interview the United States, the project the United States Air Force did in regards to interviewing UAPs. And it was closed down in '69. But 2 years later, after it's been closed down, this guy turns up from Blue Book and interviews Les Leake, and they put it down to his photograph Mars or the top of a lamppost. So at chief constable level, along with, in my opinion, the US Air Force, they've kaiboed that story and gotten rid of it at chief constable level. But I've known it happen with a superintendent who's told an officer to state that he saw a model aeroplane instead of a barrel-shaped UFO because of the fear of how the public will regard the police if we come forward and say that we've been involved in UAP sighting. So it does happen, and I myself have been advised several occasions. I would write about a different subject. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're making yourself look a bit silly. But you've got to come to a time in your life where you say, do you know what? I'm not afraid to talk about it, and I'm not bothered what rank tells me not to. But it does happen where people are silenced by people further on up the police chain about UAP matters, and I've given you a couple of examples there, and those are the ones I know about, Phil, and I'm sure that there's others. Don't get me wrong, there's nobody parked outside my house in a van with blacked out windows ready to jump on me and whisk me away, and no one's saying to me stop doing podcasts about UAP and paranormal stuff. But I do get lots of, come on, Roy, you're inspecting the police, you're not doing yourself any favors and all the rest of it. However, do you know what? I'm never going to go for a promotion again, so this is not going to harm me. And this is a subject that I'm really passionate about, Phil. So if you're passionate about something, Why shouldn't you talk about it? And I believe it's happening, so I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to say it's happening, and I'll let the chips fall as they may. But to answer your question, yeah, you know, there are countless officers like Alan Godfrey, who was drummed out of the service, because of his UAP experience. I know Gary Heseltine, another police investigator, he had a hard time when he started, doing his investigations. He's long since retired. And then you've even got to only look above, across the pond at a guy who was a deputy sheriff called Chuck Sikowski, and he had like you, he had sort of it wasn't a YouTube channel back in the day, but it was a website to do with like paranormal stuff and UFO stuff. And his own force attributed a series of cattle mutilations to predators, like coyote and all the rest of it. And he argued on his blog that he thought this had a UAP connotation because cattle mutilation and UAP go hand in hand. And he challenged that online. Well, 2 days later, and this was only going back about 12, 13 years, he was visited by 2 Colorado deputy sheriffs, and he was relieved of his gun, his badge, and he was told he was being fired for contradicting official force policy and determinations on his website. So it does happen. It has happened, and I've no doubt it will continue to happen.
Okay. Thank you, mate.
Because it's all about the reputation of the service, and if officers are talking about something that's going to diminish or damage the reputation of the service, like UAP or paranormal stuff, the organisation don't like it.
No. Have you been tempted? Have you ever been tempted? Because I've never, obviously never been a police officer. But I'm sure that I would be pretty flipping tempted to just tappy tap tap on some records and have a little dive and have a little look around, see if there is any reports of this going on or that going on, official reports. Have you ever been tempted? Is it something that's possible?
I don't think it is. I mean, where would you look? You'd have to. I've got a couple of police logs but I've been given that by witnesses, and stuff. But there's nowhere I can check. There's no systems I can look at, and all the rest of it.
There's no keywords for it. Is there any keywords when you do a search, a police search? Is there any keywords that come up like UFO, abduction, anything like that?
Potentially. But what I will say is that would cause me problems, Phil, because you can only use police systems for a policing purpose. So if I were to do anything like that, I would get myself in some hot water. And the organisation wouldn't like me doing UFO research on police systems. I personally don't think that's something I should be doing. So it's always for a policing purpose, and that is just something I wouldn't do, even though it might lead me to a couple of cases and it'd be intriguing. I wouldn't do that because it's going to get me in some. It would get me in some hot water. That would. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I thought I'd ask because the one thing, I don't think I'd be able to stop myself would be the Rendlesham 1980 Rendlesham case, because I did hear that British police officers were present as well, not just the meat pies, the American meat pies. There was British officers there, so I'd be quite intrigued.
There's a few. But I think PC King was one, but this was in the aftermath in the jungle, measuring the holes that were allegedly left by craft, in a triangular formation in the woods, and there's a few others. But I suppose to get that information, it would help if you were in Suffolk Police rather than West Mids, where I am. It's a whole different force, and I imagine 1980, we're talking, 46 years on, with a change of police systems and all the rest of it, I don't think that would be recorded. You might have some documents buried deep down somewhere in a basement that might one day be found and come out, a bit like the Holt memo was years after, 3 or 4 years after he wrote it, Charles Holt. About what he saw. But there's nothing certainly going to be in my force about the Rendlesham Forest incident. I'll be honest, that is one I've steered away from, because there's a lot of it's almost like a civil war in the UFO community, that is, with certain witnesses not getting on with certain others and all the rest of it.
Isn't it?
I'll be honest with you, I don't want any of that. I'm just, look, I'll say it here, I am just I just happen to be a police officer who is really interested in UAP, who collates stories puts them together, investigates them for the public to make up their own mind about them. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form. A lot of people profess to be experts, but I say, well, what college did you go to become an expert in UAP? You might know more and more about it as you go on, and learn things and get more stories and all the rest of it. So you get quite experienced with it. But I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I'm more of a collator of accounts, really. I do investigate them as best as I can, but it's very, very hard to prove, abductions from UAP and did they really come, or is this case genuine, or is this not, or is this a false memory, or is this true? I stay away from Rendlesham Forest.
I
Really.
don't think I don't. I honestly don't think there is anything any person as an expert, because how can you be an expert with something that is absurd, intangible,
You're right.
not there, not able to be analysed, not able to be. It's very difficult to be an expert in that. It's like
It is.
being
I'm
an
certainly not.
expert in
I'm not going to be
folklore.
producing. I'm not going to be producing a degree behind me in a frame saying, Inspector Roy Teague, a 2.1 in UAP technology, because and nobody can. And so, like, your opinion and mine, or any other UAP researchers, is just as valid as anybody else's. And sometimes it differs. And I think sometimes, it's healthy when people's opinions differ, because I think debate's healthy. I just see a lot of. Sometimes I see a lot of stuff with UAP discussions where it can get quite sort of, I don't know, it can get a bit nasty, can't it, really? Which is a shame.
Oh, do you know what? Honestly, social media, the problem is, and I've been banging on about this for so long, all these different groups are so fractured. They're all secular when it comes to, the Bigfoot groups won't get involved too much in the way of the Dogman groups. The Dogman groups won't get too much overlap into the UAP groups. They're all kind of like very defensive of their own genre. There's no bleed over of information, which really there should be, because hey, guess what? A lot of times, these things that we're dealing with, I'm sure you might have come across it, where a lot of your witnesses, a lot of the people that you've interviewed, haven't. The UFO has been a byproduct. There's also been, like you said before, other paranormal hitchhiker type stuff that's gone on, which would be under the umbrella of paranormal.
But
So it's a blending. I really wish these groups would sort of blend more information, because it would help all of us, really.
yeah, some of the best conversations you can have are when you think something is something, and then it turns out not to be, because you've been educated by someone else. I had a case once where it was almost like a black cylindrical cigar-shaped thing spinning around. It was even in an article in the Sun. There were pictures of it, and I thought, wow, what is this? This is great, and it can't be this, it can't be that, and all the rest of it. And a guy said to me, well, I know what that is. And he said it's a solar airship, and I'd never even heard of it. And then I Googled it, and you can buy them on Amazon. They're almost like huge black bin bags, but they can be like 15, 20, 30, 40 meters long, really thin. You blow them up full of air, and they float up into the sky, but they end up spinning around. And when the sun catches them, it like makes it look like there's lights on them when there's not. And it has like a rainbow color effect on it. And for years I thought, what the hell's that? And a guy educated me on it. So I never would have thought in a million years it was that. So it's okay to think something is something, and then someone come along and say, you're wrong, Roy, or whoever you are, and it's this. You've got to be willing to listen to other people. You've got to be able to accept that on occasions you're going to be wrong, but when you're wrong, you learn from that, and then you move on. You'll see a similar case next time. You'll think, I know what this is, and you grow and learn. So I guess you don't become an expert, because it's difficult to become an expert in something you can't prove or sit down and study. You can't get it on a table. You can't get a UFO on a table, or a dogman on a table, or whatever. You can't do that. So you can't be an expert in it. But what you can do is you can gain knowledge and experience of the subject that helps you come to a sensible conclusion about that case or other cases of a similar nature.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And also, do you know, I think a lot of witnesses whatever they're dealing with, whether it be a flying saucer, UFO, cryptid, whatever, a ghost, paranormal, it's very much a symbiosis of a joining mentally, if you like, or emotionally. There's a joining between the two. It affects the witness on an emotional level, and I think it alters its appearance, whatever it may be. It alters its appearance depending on the witness viewing it, and I think that often happens.
I think it does, yeah. I mean, there's the chupacabra apparently does that in Peru, and it knows you'll be frightened of whatever it is, so it can adjust its appearance so it's something you can accept with your vision or in your mind. That there is a lot to be said for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get, with all the attention you've been having because of the brilliant book, which honestly, get it, is really good. All right, well worth it. Have it in your library. Well worth it. I did read it, and very good. Do you sometimes wish you had a script? Because these podcasts, honestly, these podcast shows, there's so many now. Did it amaze you how many there are?
Yeah, it did. But what I will say is I probably had over 80 requests for podcasts. But what I can tell you is that I have done less than 20. So
wow.
Yeah, and that's by choice. Because of, and I'm not saying it because I'm on your show, but your show is a great show, Phil. I've watched loads of episodes, and there's some great podcasts there. And I wanted to be on the podcast I had a lot of time and respect for, like Truth Proof is another one with Paul Sinclair. I think he does a fantastic job.
Paul's good. Paul's good.
That UFO podcast. So I've done a few now, and I suppose it's like a comedian doing the circuit, around the country, different places. But so a lot of the stuff I say, I guess I've reiterated on sort of other shows and stuff. But there's always something new that comes out. There's always those questions that I didn't expect to come out from the interviewer, and some I think, oh crikey, how could I plan for that, and all the rest of it. But I enjoy doing them. I enjoy getting out there. I enjoy trying to get the message out there that police officers, as well as normal members of the public, are seeing these quite extraordinary things as well. So the police are saying, yeah, I am, and a few others are saying these things happen, and at least to show the public that, we're on board. We hear what you're saying, and we're seeing these things as well.
No, I'll tell you what, you've kind of like really relaxed into the show, and with other shows you've been on, you can tell it's like kind of I think you quite enjoy it now.
Yeah, the first couple were very sort of I've got to say this, and this, and of course everyone's got to have the notes, because there's things that you want to mention and all the rest of it. But yeah, when you start. It was difficult when I first started because I thought, as soon as I've done one show, I'm out the closet and people are going, oh, have you seen Inspector Teague's on? He's on the internet saying aliens are real and check out these ghost stories and this is all true. But look, once you've done one, you're committed, aren't you? So you might as well just go for it. But I'm just, I want to go on I like going on the podcasts where there's a load of passion from the interviewer, where I don't feel like I'm being poked and prodded too much, I guess, and this is quite a relaxed show, so I have settled into it, mate, to be honest. A lot more comfortable there than I was last couple of months.
You come across absolutely brilliant, I must admit. Fabulous guest. I'm so lucky. Thank you. You probably won't like this next question. It's going to be discussing could you describe I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. You described the extreme difficulty of being a serving inspector while investigating this phenomenon. Okay. You have been advised by senior officers to pick another subject and were made to feel uncomfortable when investigating a near miss between a cargo plane and a UAP at Birmingham Airport. Now, I know you can't talk very much about that because of location, but you investigated a near miss over Birmingham Airport and were encouraged to stop if a physical object almost collided with a commercial cargo plane over a major international airport that represents a severe immediate threat to civilian aviation safety. By keeping quiet about the details of this report because of the shackles of the warrant card, are you prioritizing your personal policing career over your professional duty of public safety? I've got to ask that.
You know, you should ask it, but that's what good interviewers do. Good interviewers ask the awkward questions, and good interviewers ask the questions that they know that people will want answered. So don't feel bad about it, mate. It's a really difficult one for me to talk about, mate. Did it happen? Yes. Have I got to the end of the investigation? No. Am I being met by a wall of silence about something I know existed? Yeah. And have I got good evidence that it occurred? Extremely yes. Will it remain hidden forever? No, because I won't be in the police forever, will I? But watch this space, because I think that will come out maybe in the next couple of months.
Would it?
I can't
Would
really
there?
go into it now.
No, I get it. I get it. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to dwell on it. I just wondered, would it be? Could you? Could it have been? Could you report it to like the Independent Office of Police Conduct? You know, about the, because that's meant to be anonymous, isn't it? You know, and say, look, you know, I've seen this, but I can't talk about this. Is that something, an avenue you could go
The
down?
issue at this stage is if I do it now, it's going to reveal my source or sources, and it's going to put them in a really bad predicament. But that won't be the case in a short period of time.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just I had it in my, and I thought, oh, I've just got, because I heard it on other programs when you've been on other programs, and it's like kind of, you know, the shutter came down. And I thought, oh, you know, and I've just thought, well, I've got to just ask, you know, maybe there was a case that, you know, you could have, you know, but then, yeah, if you've got witnesses you've got to protect, then yeah, that comes first. Yeah, you have to. That's fine. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, so you definitely saw whatever you saw there. That was something that you saw.
So you want to bet the Birmingham Airport thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't, but I know people that did, who may or may not be in the police, or may not be working at the airport at the time. I've just got to get a way of collating it, but there's a few more things. There's a few more loose ends I need to pull on to get to the bottom. What I don't want to come out with is half a story. When I want to get all the facts, and it's very difficult to try and prove anything. I'm not even saying, you know, it was UAP. It could have been something else, but there was definitely some sort of near miss, and that is a fact that I can prove.
Right. Thank you, mate. No, thanks for being honest. Right. It's 1 hour 28. Can I have a little look and see if there's any questions? I'll ask the admin
Please
if there's
do,
any
yeah.
questions. There we go. Right. Right. Simon Templar. Hello, Simon Templar. I haven't seen you for quite a while, actually. Question: hypothetically, if you were involved in an abduction case in which the person returns and says she was abducted by aliens, what would your protocol be?
The first thing I'd do is you know, I'd sit them down and ask in person exactly what's happened. I'd ask if I could record the conversation, because you try and write things down, you'll always miss something. So always record it. I'd be asking things like, were there any injuries? Have they been to the doctor? You know, was the clothing damaged? Where did this occur? So I can visit the scene. You'd want to be taking photographs from there. What time of day was it? Is there any CCTV overlooking it? Are there any houses overlooking it? Local authority cameras, all this stuff to try and bolster the evidence to find out what's happened. But I'll be thinking, well, there's always a reason for something to happen. So I'd then be saying to, you know, that specific person, has this happened before? Because of the hitchhiker effect, where sometimes when it's happened to a person once, it's happened to them several times. What's happened before? Do they remember anything before? Would they be interested in hypnotic regression to try and remember anything from that specific incident, which then might lead to them remembering other incidents? There's a big list of things that I would have to do. And even if you do those things, like I said before, even if you interview and someone asks hypnotic regression and they come at you and say this happened, that happened, and how do you prove it? And if someone's got a burn on them or a rash, how would you prove that came from UAP, as opposed to you know like a fire or something? It's very difficult, but those are just some of the things that I'll be speaking to the witness about and asking loads of questions.
Yeah, sure. I get it. Right. Okay. Right. Listen, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I'm just gonna show you the YouTube channel. I can't wait till you start putting some stuff on that. Let's have a look. There you go. I've got it here. Yep.
It's quite amusing. I don't know whether you know. I can see the comments as they're going up. So I don't know whether that's for me. He best say he isn't suicidal at the end of this. I definitely am not going to be suicidal at the end of this. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I'm definitely not. No.
It's probably another one of my fans. Probably. It could be my mother. But but yeah, look, show the love on the page here, on the YouTube page, which is for those listening, and if they're on a podcast listening to this, it's called Policing the Unexplained with Roy Teague, okay, on YouTube. Check out the link, it's going to be in the description, and yeah, just show some love, subscribe, and he's going to be updating it soon. I'm sure he will be, which would be great news. Also, we have the book as well. Just get it up on I've got it on Amazon. Where else is it sold, Roy?
Everywhere, Amazon, and you can get it in Kindle form and audio form. You can buy it from WH Smith, Ottakers, Waterstones, Barnes and Noble. You can get it absolutely everywhere.
Oh, okay. Right, cool. All right then. So yep, check that out, people. Well worth getting. Other than that, Roy, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on. If you'd like to stay on just for 5 minutes, I'll wrap the show up. People in the comments, thank you very much. We've had quite a few. We've had 90 comments so far. Keith Ashton said, very interesting. Thank you very much, Keith. Do appreciate it. Good seeing you again. Got Dawn, Sasquatch Sister. Simon Templar. Hello, Simon. Lisa Turner. Let's have a look. He isn't suicidal at the end of this. He best say he isn't suicidal. Yes, right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully not. Yeah. Let's have a look. Yeah, we've got quite a few. Who's this then? Got Chief Von Beef. How do you become an expert on something nobody can even agree has been identified? Yeah, very true. Actually, it
is true. I mentioned that earlier. So you can't be. You can just gain experience from investigating it and talking to witnesses. So Chief Von Beef, yeah, he's right.
Very, very much so. Yeah. It's I don't know. Are you going to delve off into other areas like paranormal more? Do you think?
Yeah. So I've started to get I say started, it's been a couple of 3 or 4 months now. I've been getting emails and correspondence now from police officers, the NHS, military, fire service, in regards to paranormal stuff, folklore stuff, cryptid stuff. You know, I've had a guy say he believes he saw a mermaid at Kionsay Cove down in Devon and Cornwall. I spoke to a nurse who used to work at the Royal Hospital in Wolverhampton, who saw like a ghostly nun once, and then later on a medium has seen the same nun following around a hospital. I spoke to an officer who was chased out of his old home that his parents now occupy by what he described as a wraith. I've got all sorts of accounts now, so I collate them, really make them detailed as much as I can. You know, like the guys on the back of an ambulance who, at the point they turned off a Lucas machine that keeps the body alive, you know, just the compressions for the heart and keep, you know, they've got an airbag on and trying to keep this guy alive, and unfortunately they couldn't. But at the point they turned the Lucas machine off, they've seen like a white light flash from the guy's body go through the machine up into the ambulance roof, and they believe that was like almost the soul of the man who passed away leaving his body. So I've got a ton of stories and accounts from paranormal stuff from officers now. So yeah, I'm working on putting that together, and I'll get that out at some point in the future as well, and get them interviewed on Police and the Unexplained, the YouTube channel.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's excellent news. I can't wait, and I will keep an eye on that channel. Honestly, I'll keep an eye on that, and yeah, that'll be very interesting. All right. Listen, everyone that's been in the chat, do appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm sure you have. Roy's been absolutely, you know, fabulous, absolutely fabulous guest. And yeah, please, you know, check out the book and yeah, show some love to his channel. That would be wonderful. Other than that, Roy, if you'd like to stay on for 2 minutes, that'd be brilliant. I'll wrap this up. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Right, okay, and we shall see you next week. Next week is going to be more of a cryptid week. Okay, next Friday. Got a very interesting conversation to have about cryptids. Okay, see you again soon. Take care. Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy it. All right. God bless. Bye bye.
I know what I saw out there.